Welcome back, my Jedi friends, and in today's fascinating episode, I bring you who is the most powerful healer? And in this video, I'm going to discuss something that I found, and that's spiritual bigotry. Because if you put a lot of healers together, then the egos are usually going to come out, and everybody wants to know whose healing is the best. Who's the most powerful healer in the room? So this is something that I have found on pretty much every course I've gone to, that there's a few egos in the world of healing. And I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a little story. So just after I'd become a Reiki master, I was starting to think, and I'd had my personal breakthrough. I'd had a couple of energetic journeys that I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I'd come from a place of doubt too, starting to think that I had I had the tools. I knew what I was doing. I was ready to roll. I was ready to rock and roll, folks. And I went to train in vortex healing. And I was I was sitting on the grass one day having a little chat with a few people that were attending the course. And I started sharing a few things about what I'd learned about healing. Now, I can look back now and say I was very early on in the journey, and I probably sounded like an enthusiastic amateur to the advanced stage healers that were there. But I remember the look on one of the faces that absolutely cut me down at the knees. Now, this was a woman that was actually struggling. She had pain in her hip, and she'd done a lot of healing work, but obviously not enough healing work to shift the pain in her hip. But nonetheless, her contempt for me was obvious. It was very obvious, my Jedi friends. Now, I'm looking back at this situation now, and I'm not coming at it from a victim. I absolutely get where she is, or where she was at the time, where she felt she needed to clip my wings. And rightly so. I think I needed my wings clipped. Now, could it have been done a little bit more delicately? Well, possibly. But the point being is that we all need to be taken down a peg or two occasionally, especially since it was me that was usually going in and asking all the tough questions of the people training us. So I saw that as fair game. But what it made me realize, certainly in that environment, was that anyone that has any sort of healing gift, especially people that it's their living, if you put them in an environment where other people that do the same thing, different things, no one will admit that they do the same thing, channeling energy. And we all have a different angle at it. But the point being, there's a lot of spiritual bigotry out there. And I'll tell you another story. I went to a healing weekend. In fact, it was a 5 day healing retreat. And I'm not going to say what style of healing it was because I don't think it's fair to name names. But enough to be said that the most senior people, or the people who thought they were the most senior people in that particular healing modality, turned up. And they asked us to say which branch of the healing system that they did that we had learned. And I really didn't know. I really didn't know. And it felt very Masonic that anyone that didn't adhere to the system that had been taught by the head honcho felt like there wasn't good enough, or hers was the best. Hers was the best way. And I spent the whole 5 days calling out bullshit on that. And I ruffled a lot of feathers. I upset a lot of people. And I witnessed the most incredible amount of spiritual bigotry while I was there. Now, this is a healing community. It's a healing community. And luckily, in those circles for me, I felt that I was very junior. I certainly didn't have any ego issues there about what I was bringing to the mix. I felt massively out of my depth. I felt like a fraud. And I was a Reiki master at the time, folks. I was a Reiki master at the time. So I had a background in healing. I'd also studied other healing modalities as well. which gave me potentially on paper the authority to be in the company that I was in. But mentally, I felt that I was completely out of my depth and I went in with no expectations and I ended up ruffling a lot of feathers. And I don't need to go into detail on this story, enough to say that I witnessed people that were very dogmatic, very rigid in the way that they taught their systems and what could be moved and what couldn't. And it was pretty much also this 5 day retreat gave me a gift. It gave me the gift of realizing that there's numerous different systems there, and each can be potentially complementary to the other. But if we get too rigidly caught in one system, then that can be detrimental as well. And I've seen it. I've seen it numerous times, my Jedi friends. Numerous times. I'm the head honcho. It's my way or the highway. If you don't do this, it won't work. Now, there's a lot of bollocks in healing circles. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of restrictions. And that's done, my Jedi friends. That's done because if you're paying good money to learn how to be a healer, and here's the caveat, you already were a healer, they're just going to show you how to formalize that. So I guess I better unpack that. I better unpack it, folks. So, what is healing? What is energy? Energy is channeled thought for good. It's thought for good. Thought for good that becomes things, because when we think things, we energize them. That's what energy is, folks. Our thoughts energize. So, whatever you're thinking about right now, you're energizing, you're healing it, or you're absolutely going the other way. Most people are caught in a negative realm. And yes, what we think about, we energize. And healing is nothing more than a system to get you to focus on spending more time in a positive mindset, doing with a positive intention to do positive things. Now, you don't need to be an energy master to do that. It will have a different label on it. You'll call it different things, but our thoughts energize. And if you think positive things, you get generally positive outcomes. Now, that's a very loose rule that isn't applicable to all situations. There's way too many shades of gray. But when we're in a healing zone, we're in a healing zone when we want to do good for someone. We've set ourselves, and when we're focused nothing on nothing more than doing good for the person we're with and channeling energy, we receive it because we channel it. So good things come from wanting to do good for others, which is generally the healing paradigm. Now, there's all sorts of exceptions to this, folks. So I'm just giving you very loose translation. I've spent many hours learning about healing and more importantly, actually using it to understand that there are numerous different nuance within this that make it not as simple. It's as simple or as complicated as your journey. And some people will have a simple journey into it, and some people will have a complicated one. And it's that simple, folks. Your mind gets in the way. Healing is a very pure thing. It enables you to channel energy, to do good, and to help yourself. It's the ultimate win-win because you do good when you help yourself. But the trouble is, if you get into the wrong environment, if you learn from the wrong people, then they will want to put you in a junior position so that they can take more money for you for advanced training programs. And that's not just healing, folks. That's the world of personal development. And much as I love him, absolutely love him, you only need to go to a Tony Robbins event to absolutely get how that works. And Tony's a great man. He does some great things, but you certainly pay for the privilege of it. And if you bring enough inspired people together, you will create an energy vortex, which is what the real win is about. If you have enough positive people in a single space, you will raise the vibration, you will raise the energy. And by charging people for your content, it's not about the content, it's about the experience, you will give them value. But it can be very addictive for event junkies out there that go to these events. They feel uplifted, feel uplifted. And yet, the moment you walk out the door on the final day, woo, your energy slumps back down again. And then you start to wonder whether you should have paid uh, the multiple tens of thousands of pounds for some of these courses that you would need to go back and get more of the same, my Jedi friends. When in actual fact, the gift of energy is being able to use it on your own, independent of other people around you, to be that channel, to be that source, to be the person who channels the energy for good. And anyone can do it anytime, any place. So there you go, folks. Usually the people with the lowest egos get the best results. I certainly got some great results when I didn't think I was very good at it. I just simply did what I was told to do and let the energy come through without judging it. And as long as I stayed in that zone, I got some serious results, some really profound shifts when I was in that zone. So you don't need to be a proficient healer. You don't need to have been doing it for several years. You don't need any pre-qualifications to work with energy. But as soon as your ego gets involved, it does complicate the issue. And this is what we're talking about with spiritual bigotry. So, my Jedi friends, just be aware, even with me, sometimes, I mean, and I'm the first to admit that there's been times on this journey where I was a bit too big for my boots and I needed to have my wings clipped. And that's exactly what happened, my Jedi friends, because I needed that. I needed it. So I'm not just saying there's other people out there. No, I've had to have my own wings clipped on this journey, folks. I think we all do. And humility is key when you're working with energy as well, I believe, because nobody likes a big end. No one likes a big end. And let's face it, we're all going to die. So unless you really are an ascended master, you ain't that powerful and you ain't that good a healer, or maybe you are. Maybe that's a debate for another day. But the bottom line is, the point of this video is that anyone can do healing. If anybody tells you you're doing it wrong, or starts putting restrictions on your ability to use energy to channel it, that's where the red lights should start, my Jedi friends. Because the great healers will not be threatened by you using energy. They will not be threatened by you stepping up. They will not be threatened by people with advanced skill sets that can do other things. But unfortunately, most people are, folks. Most people are. And there we have it, spiritual bigotry. Even the teacher will attract people in their class that probably have, I wouldn't say better gifts, but certainly gifts in other areas which can add to the process. And anyone that's not prepared to engage that and help people to flourish within that environment is probably not a good teacher. So there you go, my Jedi friends. We all need to have our wings clipped occasionally, and we all need to be brought up occasionally. And knowing the difference is where the advanced Jedi training remains. Knowing whether people need a stick or a carrot is usually the way, my Jedi friends. But for people who are highly sensitive, for most people that watch this channel, it's probably the carrot that you need. It's probably more confidence that you need. And if any of those arseholes have been teaching you and have made you to doubt your powers or capabilities, then you are watching this now for a reason, especially if you're still watching it now. So, my Jedi friends, go and own your gifts. Be careful to avoid the spiritual bigotry. And who is the most powerful healer? Well, probably the one who's not even mentioning it. I would suggest, folks, but that's just my suggestion. You can do what you want. And with that little bombshell, please do offer a bit of love to the channel, like and subscribe if you're not already. It helps me in the algorithm. And there's another little video there, folks, so you can go on, continue your journey, have fun, and be yourself, because that's really important.